Hello everybody, Shinjo here, welcome back to Let's Talk Anime, and this is episode 65, and I'm here to discuss 3 more topics that you gave me, so let's get started. Up first, we have The Legend of Mana, the Teardrop Crystal. So just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to refer to this as The Legend of Mana, and I'm going into this making the assumption this is based off of some sort of video game or mobile game, and if that is true, then I'm right on the mark, and if not, I apologize. So, just to get into the simplicity of it, you basically have the main character Shiloh, who just hangs around his village. He adopts 2 kids from something that already happened. They're out one day, and he starts getting involved with all of these things after meeting Elazul, who's looking for Pearl. And then Shiloh learns about this character called Sandra, who is determined to kill all of the gem people, also known as Jumi. Why? I'm not sure. I've only watched 3 episodes, so I can only speculate at this point. And from there, it seems like he's just gonna go around to learn about all these Jumi and try and protect them. Again, I'm only 3 episodes in, so it's very early into the show. But that's basically the simplest plot of the story. So getting into the things that I like the mystery surrounding it. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not sure why Sandra's doing all this. I'm not sure what role the Jumi have. There's a little bit of backdrop on it where the Jumi basically all conspired against each other or thought they did, and they all just split apart. Stuff like that and the mystery surrounding it is really neat. And quite honestly, I just like anything that's involving gemstones. The Gem Knight monsters from Yu-Gi-Oh!, Steven Universe, stuff like that I just eat up. I'm not exactly sure why, I just like stuff involving gemstones. It might be because some of the Pokemon games were named after gemstones as well. But I just like this concept just purely based off of that. Especially considering characters like Elazul. Seems like his name is an anagram for Lapis Lazuli, considering the first 2 episodes were named off of it. The other thing that I like is I'm really glad that they introduced Sandra early into the show, because she's supposed to be the main antagonist of at least this part of the show. But they had that part where she was going up against Rubius, and nobody acknowledged anything about a name, and then afterwards Shiloh just says Sandra was here. And that I'm really glad they did, because it could have just been a henchman of Sandra, but considering that they mention her name so many times, I'm really glad that they just introduced her early, where it's not a situation where she just sits in the background and doesn't do anything. Now, the things that I didn't like about it, like I mentioned before, it seems like this is based off of a mobile game or a video game of some kind. Because I get the same sort of vibe from this that I get from other things like Princess Connect Redive, where the characters are so detailed and they look like they would fit so perfectly into a video game that it just seems like it's a perfect fit, and I'm sure this is a similar situation. Stuff like that, with the exception of Princess Connect Redive, I personally don't care for. But this show is actually starting to interest me a little bit, so I might even watch it off of my free time. Other thing that I hope they fix later in the show is Shiloh. Because Shiloh just seems like a blank character. But yeah, he has his small moments of personality, but overall he's just a generic main character to me. And hopefully that they change that, but at the moment it's just not doing itself any favors. But like I said before, I'm going to continue watching this in my free time when I get a chance, so hopefully the stuff that I have issues with, they'll fix. Next topic is Sugar Apple Fairy Tail. So for those of you that didn't watch it, I did do a breakdown of everything that was going to be happening the season that this anime aired, and I read on it and thought it sounded interesting enough, so I did say that I was going to give it a watch. And from there, somebody asked me to review it for this series, so I watched 3 episodes of it, so let's see what I think. let's go for the opposite this time. Let's talk about the things that I didn't like. Honestly, it's a bit boring for me. And that's not an insult to the show. I mean, it basically is. But it's just kind of generic. Like, yeah, Anne has her nice little moments of development with her mom, but overall, it's just kind of generic. And just from what I've seen from the show, it's supposed to be like a shoujo, so I guess that's how they are. I don't know. I don't watch enough shoujo to even make an opinion on that. But just for me, it just feels kind of generic. And for the other thing that I didn't like, the characters, besides Anne. Every other characters I just don't like. Jonas, the childhood friend of Anne that falls in love with her, he just feels like a simp. Challe, the fairy knight that she basically pals around with, for lack of a better term, just comes off as edgy for no real reason. And then Mithril and Kathy, they just come off as rude and annoying. Now, I'm sure they have their reason for doing things. Obviously, calling Jonas a simp is breaking it down to the simplest thing. I'm sure that with Jonas, Challe, Mithril, and Kathy, they'll hopefully develop the characters to learn how they became the way they became. Because at the same time, the fairies might come off as rude and annoying to the humans because of the history that they have together. But just for right now, I only really like Anne. But let's move on to the positive things. The things that I like are the art style. I really like how it looks. It definitely sets itself apart compared to other anime that are airing, even just now. Even though I berated it a little bit ago, the comedy is kind of funny because Anne just acts as a straight woman to everybody just being idiots or being edgy or annoying. Also, Anne's backstory with her mom is very heartwarming and sad. It does give us a bit of a backstory for us to root for the main protagonist in this show rather than Legend of Mana. But at the same time, it's still very early into the story. It's pretty clear from how they present things that there's a split between the humans and the fairies, but personally, I don't care enough to continue. Because I'm sure there's gonna be some stuff going on with the division between the two factions, and meanwhile, Anne and Challe are gonna fall in love with each other, because that's how stuff like this works out. Personally, I didn't go into the show expecting much, even in my original video where I looked at the plot of the show, but I just don't care enough about it to continue. Sorry. Speaking of things that I didn't care enough to continue, up next for our final topic is Log Horizon. So Log Horizon, I don't want to say it was the first one, but it's definitely one of the first isekai that was actually good, because a lot of people like to clown on stuff like SAO and I'm sure a whole bunch of other stuff that was early on, but Log Horizon, I don't think there's a person out there that says they don't like Log Horizon. Granted, I haven't heard many people talk about it in general, but still, Log Horizon is just a pretty cool concept. You got these group of people that play a video game and then they get trapped in it, so it does kind of sound like Sword Art Online, but you know, it's different because they delve into the politics of everything. But let me talk about the positives that I have first. The first season is really good. I personally like the characters. I can't remember his name, but that one sort of goofy looking guy that was on the edge of dying, that really tugged at my heartstrings. And just overall, it's a pretty interesting story with a lot of cool characters that unfortunately I don't remember their names, but outside of Akatsuki, I don't remember any of the other names off the top of my head, but I just like the designs of a lot of these characters, honestly, even though I can't remember the names. The other thing that I didn't like, normally I don't go out of my way to specify this, but I feel like this has to be mentioned for this. The opening for the first 2 seasons of this, Database, is amazing. I love this song so much, if it wasn't obvious already. reason I know it's for the second season is because I watched a couple of episodes of it, but I'll save the rest of my thoughts for that when I get into the cons. I know they changed the OP for the third season that aired recently. It's okay. I don't think it's going to reach the heights of Database, but it's still a cool song. But let's go on to the cons of everything. Let me continue the conversation that I had from before. I watched the entirety of the first season, but going into the second season, I just sort of lost interest in it. The politics and strategy of everything never personally gelled with me, but I bared it and watched the first season of it because there wasn't as much of that. But it seems like they're diving more into the politics with the second season, so I never really cared for that, and that's why I didn't continue watching it. It definitely does set itself apart considering other isekais don't dive into stuff like that, but it just feels kind of boring to me personally. The other thing, now granted, since I watched Log Horizon's first season before, I didn't rewatch anything for this, so a lot of this was just coming from my memory. Another thing that I don't like with the show is you have these people that are back at their guild base, whatever you want to call it. Then you have the older girl that constantly falls over Akatsuki, always talking about dressing her up in different costumes, always doing this and that just to get Akatsuki to fluster. I do not like that character. It's honestly to the same level of the teacher from K-On!, where it's the older adult that's supposed to be setting an example, but just acts like a complete goofball. And I'm sure there are people that like her character, but personally, I don't care at all. But who knows, me talking about Log Horizon on the channel might get a group of people saying that the second season's really good, and I might continue it. Who knows? But those are my topics for this episode of Let's Talk Anime. Let me know what you think about everything that I discussed down in the comment section. If you have any topics for me to discuss, leave them down in the comment section below. And I'll see you next time. Momentai.